Mesachas Pesachim daf Ayin Zayin. In the Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Vav and Beis, Mishnah says Chamisha Dvarim Boim B'tumah Ve'ein Nacholim B'tumah. The Mishnah brings Korbanis tzibur, and the Gemara says it's coming Lemute Chagigas Chamisha Asar. That you might think that since it's a Korban tzibur, the kvila is man, it should be docheh tumah. Kamash malan, since the islay tashlum and kol shiva, it's not docheh shabos. Tosfos brings this girsha, which is Rashi's girsha, that says since it's tashlum and kol shiva, so therefore it's not docheh shabos, it's not docheh tumah. And Tosfos says it's not the point that we're not curious that because the answer is not because it's tashlum and kol shiva. You're learning out from a pasuk and more before that ayin and beis. No, it's out from Gzeir Zakosov. The chagigas tesvav is not docheh shabos. It's not because it is the tashlum and kol shiva. And he says furthermore, the point is because it's the tashlum and therefore can't be docheh tumah. So why is it that Korban Pesach is docheh tumah? Korban Pesach has a tashlum in Pesach Sheni. Ayin the Rambam that brings the gears of Rashi, the Mishnah is meicht matmiya on the Rambam, and Tosfos kashis. But he is furthermore that Be'emes on Tosfos is also shver that says it's Gzeir Zakosov. The Gemara in Yuma says clearly that the reason why Chagigas Tesvav is not docheh is because it's not considered kvila zman. Ayin Reblei Malin has arichas to explain the Shittas Rashi and the Rambam, and he says Be'emes yishalachkar, and that there's halacha that a Korban tzibur is docheh tumah and Shabbos. Is the pshat that whenever the hakravas korban is a contradiction to tumah and Shabbos, and you can't be makriv the korban mepoil, that is mechayiv v'dchiyah? Or the pshat is no, it's a halacha b'moyadoi that you'll learn out that there's a specific zman of this korban mi'ikr din of this man has to be today, and the fact that the zchiyah of the korban has to be today, that is what's docheh tumah and docheh Shabbos. But if it just happens to be that it falls out the contradiction, mitzad that it won't be docheh Shabbos. Ayin the shiurim of Daf Samach Tes, we brought this chakira from the Yad Levi, and Daf Ayin we brought from the Divrei Eliezer. So Blei Malin explains that Be'emes is a raya from our Gemara. Our Gemara brings in that our Mishnah had to be explained that tzibur of Rosh Chodesh is docheh tumah, and the more it explains, you will think that's not considered a moyed. It doesn't say moyed there, since it says korelei moyed lishba bechurei. It's considered as if it said moyed in the korban of Rosh Chodesh. Tosfos asks, why do you need the apostle? Typically, the Korbanos in Parshas Pinchas that says moyed is referring to Rosh Chodesh as well. Ayin the Mashah. The ask on Tosfos that how can you learn out from the pasuk that the Gemara brings that Divei Kapolah in the term Divei Kapolah Afinon. So Bleib says Be'emes tzarchian. What's the Gemara Shaila? It says Moyadai. There's a specific time for the korban of Rosh Chodesh. What's the Gemara Shaila? He says the Gemara's Havamina is that although there is a time for the korban of Rosh Chodesh, it could be it's not the zman of Rosh Chodesh is mechayiv, and although the zman of other korbanos of Yom Tov, the zman is mechayiv and it's considered Moyadai. However, Rosh Chodesh, the Hamas Havamin is the Zman's not mechayiv. It happens to be, it falls out on this time. It's not considered b'moedei, so it can't be docheh tumah. So that's the Gemara says no. It's considered that the Zman is mechayiv. So according to this, Bleib says that's the understanding in Rashi and the Rambam that the Gemara's Havamina is that Chagigas Tesvav is considered kvila Zman, even though it has Tashlumin Kol Shiva. It's not the pshat that Tashlumin Kol Shiva means the Iker Zman Akravas Korban is all 7 days. The Iker Zman Akravas Korban is the first day. That you have Tashlumin Kol Shiva is a new halacha that you could be mashlim the chiyuv of the first day later. So therefore, the zman chiyuv is the first day, and it's considered moyadai. That's the Gemara's having mina, and that's why it's docheh tumah. So the Gemara says no. They're learning out from the pasuk that Tosfos brings the Gzeir Zakosov that since there is tashlum and kol shiva, it's not considered that this korban's kvila zman. It's not a Gzeir Zakosov ba'alma that's not docheh Shabbos, not docheh tumah. It's a general klal that b'moyadai it's not considered korban kvula zman. So therefore you can compare the same with docheh Shabbos. Who then it's not docheh tumah. And Bleib says that Be'emes Tosfos himself agrees to that yesod that the point is that you learn it from the pasuk that's not considered kfulas man. That's why Tosis is not straight from the Mar Yuma that says that the reason why Chagigas Tesvav is not docheh is because it's not considered kfulas man, because Tosis agrees that you're learning from the pasuk that it's not considered kfulas man. Moving further on, Tosis asks a kasha that's more in the Gemara and the Ein Zayin and Aleph, that if you hold tumah's docheh tzibur, you need a ritzui tzitz. So Tosis asks, if that's the case, how could it be that's more and more further that when tumah's gavri, when the person is tameh, tumah docheh by tzibur itself is matrit, it's mavur, there is no ritzui tzitz on tumah's gavri. Ein B'chanan and Mishnah of Aaron, the answer to this is kasha, and they explain that you have to understand that we find that there's a concept of tumah docheh tzibur and ritzui tzitz. Why do you need both of these halachas? How do these two halachas work together? And they explain that these two separate halachas, tumah docheh tzibur is matter the isser. There's isser of being makriv a korban that's tameh, and tumah docheh will be matter that isser. But besides for the isser that you can't bring a korban b'tumah, there's also a psul. A korban that's tameh is possible. So what's machshir and makes the korban kosher is the halacha of ritzui tzitz. So there's two separate halachas. Ritzui tzitz is machshir the korban, and tumah docheh tzibur is matter the hakrova b'tumah. And so they say that's only when the boss is tameh. So you need 2 points. You need tumah docheh tzibur and ritzui tzitz. However, by tumah's gavri, when the person that's being makriv is tameh, over there, although there's a psul, the psul comes from the isser. Since there's an isser to be makriv a korban b'tumah, that makes a psul. So therefore, if you have a tumah docheh tzibur, that's matir the isser, and since there's a heter in the isser, so therefore memela there's no psul. Aaron Koller brings a right from Mara Zvachim Daf Tezayin and Beis that learns out that oinen is mechal avoida from tumah and zar, and the Gemara says etzar hashavah shebehen that the mishim muzharim v'im avdu chilel. So you see that the reason why a tumah is mechal avoid is because muzharim, because it's also to be makriv. Moving further, the Gemara says that tzitz ben yeshna al metzcha ben she'ena al metzcha is meratza. Rashi says that means bin sheyeshna al metzcha b'shas she'iru tumah b'korbanis. The Gvur Sari and the Yad Ramah is matmi on Rashi. Why do you need a tzitz at the time that there was tumah b'korbanis? The halacha of ritzui tzitz is that there's a ritzui in the krava of the korban. What does that have to do with the time that the korban became tameh? It should be specifically at the time of the krava's korban. What does that have to do with the fact that the korban became tameh? So the Yad Ramah argues in Rashi, Ein B'skarov in Nozir, that explains that the understanding of Rashi is that Rashi agrees you need a ritzui tzitz at the time of the krava, but he says also you need a ritzui tzitz at the time of the tumah. And since there was a ritzui tzitz at the time of the tumah, therefore was a chal, a din in this korban, that it could have a hechsher with ritzui tzitz. If it wouldn't have been chal in the ikar tumah that there's a ritzui tzitz, it wouldn't be able to be zarek the dam afterwards. I understand for Pliny Hagriz from a Moshe Mordechai Shlozen Gezachon Levracha that he's ma'irich, the be'emes tzarchi, and if you have a ritzui tzitz at the time of the Kabbalah's tumah, and then it's chal a din in the ikar tumah that it could be muchsher with the ritzui tzitz, why do you need ritzui tzitz again at the time of the zrika? And he explains according to B'Sazalman, and B'Sazalman's mvur chiddush, there's two separate halachas in ritzui tzitz. One is in the etzem ritzui of the korban, that the korban is merutza. One is the isser of bringing a korban b'tumah. The ritzui tzitz is matche the isser b'tumah. So the Pliny Agriz explains, although at the time of the ritzui tzitz b'kapashas Kabbalah's tumah was chaladin in the korban that could have a ritzui with the ritzui tzitz, but there's still another halacha. There is the issa of hakrova b'tumah, and that's why you need ritzui tzitz at the time of the krovas hakorban to matche the second into matche the issa b'tumah.